I don't know what happened with day 8, guys. I freaking streamed it earlier, but it wasn't capturing my screen. It was just kind of me yapping, which is kind of pointless. So, anyway, last night I had a couple problems. I would place an anti-node, and then I would continue to place anti-nodes. That was my problem with part 1. Come to find out with part 2, that's what you were supposed to do. So with part 1, you're not using the resonance, so you're just going to, or what I'm doing is for each of the antennas, I am searching for every other antenna of the same frequency. I'm grabbing that interval between them, and then I'm like extrapolating out one more time, or I'll continue until I don't land on an instance of this same antenna, and then I'll mark that place with an antinode with using that interval, right, to stride, and that's doing this right here. So so yeah, for each antenna, this is an antenna is anything that's not a period or a pound. For each one of those antennas, I'm going to go through all the other antennas of the same frequency. Needs to equal the same frequency, and that gives me 2 sets of coordinates, which I can calculate the stride, or the deltas, the delta I, the delta j. That's like the distance and direction from those 2 antennas. And then starting at that second antenna, like this, I just stride that interval, and if I'm not using resonance, if it's not the same frequency as the original one, we mark it. It can overlap with other types. That's why I have it in like a Boolean array is antinode. Else we stride again. If we land on the same frequency, we just keep striding until we land on something else. And then for part 2, the only change is right here. For part 2, well, there's 2 changes with part 2. There will be an antinode on each antenna, first of all, unless that antenna doesn't have at least 2 instances on the grid. Every antenna that has at least 2 instances on the grid is going to have an antinode on itself. And then the only other change is that we continue to place the antinodes every stride. That was literally it. And then the other thing that you miss is I just made an interface for my tests, because I keep doing the same thing. So I just made a little interface for that. And I fixed my day 6. What was my problem with day 6? Oh, on part 2, I was initializing M and N below here, below the copy. And then in the copy, I'm using M and N. They were 0. So I was getting an empty grid. That's why I was getting the errors in my tests, but everything works now. Tets. Everything working good. Sweet. Alright, I will see you guys tonight.